In this video, I'm going to talk to you about what I did to address the single biggest problem that I dealt with the lawns that I was taking care of last year. And the reason that I think this is important is because some people think that lawn care is about just finding you a good program when I'm talking about weed control and fertilization, just doing the same thing year after year after year. Well, there is some truth to that. We want to continue to use good products year after year, but I would argue that lawn care can also be about making adjustments because not every year is the same. And I learned that lesson last year. Last year was a year where the insects got to me in the lawns that I was taking care of. Now, that's not like every yard I went to was hammered by insects, but I was dealing with fall armyworms for one, grubs is a second one, and chinch bugs was a third one. And so I decided this year, one of the adjustments I was gonna make in my lawn care program was I was gonna help take care of these insect problems and not wait and just run around and chase them after the fact, but try to take care of them on the front end to give me a peace of mind knowing that the lawns that have been entrusted to my care are being taken care of, but also the customer a peace of mind knowing that, hey, I don't have to just sit around worrying if I'm starting to hear about armyworms on the news if my yard's gonna get hit or not, because my lawn care professional is already taking care of that problem. So I'm going to show you the exact strategy you can use to help with this in this video. Today's video is sponsored by InView. I've been doing some videos for InView, and you're probably familiar with them if you watch the channel, if you're in the lawn care business. They make products like Spectacle, Celsius, Tribute Total, all the products you probably heard about if you watch the channel, if you do weed control and fertilization like me. Today we're talking about this product right here. And this is the product, it's called Durentis. And going back to the story I was talking about at the beginning of the video, is what I learned the hard way is you can have a yard that's pretty clean of weeds and the wrong insect get a hold of that yard and it makes you look really bad as a lawn care professional because of the damage it can do. And no, it doesn't always just bounce back really quickly, and I learned that also. So I'm going to get into some of the specifics about Durentis here in just a minute, but what I want to talk about is some of the pests that we mentioned. Specifically, let's spend some time talking about armyworms, and then I want to talk to you about grubs as well. And then I may make a quick mention about chinch bugs. So armyworms, I think at the time of this video was about 3 years ago, we had like an epic armyworm season. I don't think it was just where I live here in Alabama. I think it was all over the news. Really bad year of armyworms. Now there's some years that go by where I don't have any armyworms. You say, Jason, what's an armyworm? How would I recognize an armyworm? Fortunately, I got some clips here for armyworm footage, but let me just say this, what an armyworm is not. If you walk out on your front porch like I did today, if that was on my porch, but I saw a little tiny green caterpillar. Okay, every caterpillar you see is not an armyworm. So if you see one or two caterpillars crawling around, you probably have nothing to worry about. But if you happen to go outside and you see hundreds and possibly thousands of caterpillars that are eating your grass, and here in the South they love the Bermuda grass. Now fortunately they don't mess with centipede, they typically don't mess with the zoysia in my experience, but they really like the Bermuda grass. And one of the challenges is they can actually eat just about your entire yard within a couple of days. I guess that depends on the size of your yard, but it's safe to say they could at least do a lot of damage within a couple of days. Here's some signs, I guess, for armyworms. If you just happen to not see the thousands of caterpillars in your yard, and I should say some infestations are worse than others. You might go outside and just see a section of your yard turning brown. So if you know that you've had plenty of water, okay, you need to understand the difference in drought stress and armyworm damage. But you know, let's say it's been raining plenty, you're like, hey, my yard's green except over there, and it's just noticeably brown. Well, then go over there and look and see what's going on and see if there's a lot of caterpillars. You may also happen to notice a bunch of wasps flying around in an area that may have armyworms in it. You may happen to see an unusual amount of birds in your yard out there eating the armyworms. So these are some things you can notice. Again, the thing about it is when you get armyworms, you want to take action as quick as possible if you want to try to save your lawn and keep it from looking terrible. So this is where it comes in with a decision I made for my lawn care business. I thought, you know what, in the past, what I've done is wait till the customer calls, they say I've got armyworms, what's the problem with that? Well, sometimes you get out there and the yard's basically already eaten. You know, they just don't pay as much attention to the yard as maybe you do, and they walk outside, it's been 3 or 4 days, they walk out and the yard's brown, so they call me. By the time I get there, I'm just saying it's almost too late. Now, it doesn't mean it's gonna kill the grass, they don't kill the grass, but they eat all the leaves, and if they come in August and September, which is typically the time frame that you might see them here in my area, sometimes as early as July. And sometimes when they eat the whole yard and turn it brown, it may not be green again until the following May, because it may start green up in April but take some time to recover. So it can really cause some significant damage to the lawn. Well, the great thing about Durentis is it's a product that you can apply ahead of time to keep the armyworms off your lawn. Now, it will actually kill the armyworms if you wanted to spray, you know, an active infestation, but that's not the approach I'd recommend. I would say no, get out there ahead of the armyworms. Practically speaking, what did I do? I was spraying Durentis like in June, July time frame, knowing that, hey, the armyworms could be coming late July, August into September. Now, one of the things good about Durentis is the very low rate that you have to use, because Durentis is going to come in a 16-ounce bottle or a 64-ounce bottle, but for armyworms, the recommended rate is as low as 0.68 ounces per acre up to 1.33 ounces per acre. Now, I've heard of people using that lower rate and applying it multiple times. Personally, I went ahead and used the higher rate, that 1.33 ounces per acre, and that should cover me through armyworm season for this year. Again, doing it ahead of time, not waiting until the armyworms come. Another thing, just from a business standpoint, I can go ahead and include that in my lawn care program for my customers. It gives them the peace of mind. I don't have to worry about running around chasing armyworms this fall if they do come. I don't have to rely on the customer to let me know that they've had a problem. And honestly, when I run around chasing the armyworms, it's not exactly the most profitable thing for me, because it's not like I get 20 yards in the same neighborhood that all want their yard sprayed with armyworms. I end up hitting one customer here, driving across town, hitting another customer. So it's not very efficient in my mind. Now, for the grubs, it's a little bit higher rate. The recommended rate for the grubs is 2.68 ounces up to 5.37 ounces. Again, that's how many ounces you put per acre. So it goes a really long way with your 16-ounce bottle or your 64-ounce bottle, depending on which one you choose. If you're doing the armyworm application, to do it without rain in the forecast or irrigation coming on for 24 hours. Now, with the grubs or the armyworms, I think it would be better to use a higher volume of water. The label recommends a minimum of 1 gallon per 1,000 square feet. So it might not be a great idea to use your ride-on spreader spray if it has a real low volume, because the idea is this is a systemic insecticide. So we want to get it down there, especially for the grubs, get it down there into the soil, let the plant take it in. And I'm not going to expound on this much, but you actually can use this for your tree and ornamental program as well. Give you 28 days of control for things like Japanese beetle and other insects that can damage your trees and shrubs. The other thing is Durentis doesn't have a signal word on the label, so there's no caution or warning, you know, those labels. So it's a low toxicity compared to some other insecticides that you could be spraying on the lawn. What about grubs? Well, here's my experience on customers talking to me about grubs. If a customer gets a brown spot in their yard, sometimes they say, hey, I think I got grub damage over here. I got a brown spot. Now, it could be anything from the dog peeing on the yard. It could be armyworms. Could be it hadn't rained in a month. You know, it could be a lot of things that made it brown. But sometimes they say, I think I got grub damage over there. Well, here's my understanding of grub damage, and here's the grub damage I have a visual image of in my mind. Last year, I had a yard, and we had plenty of rain, zoysia lawn. I go out there, and there's a section of the lawn that's starting to become discolored. I'm like, what's going on with this situation right here? And it's a yard I've been taking care of for years, and just to be honest, I never really had this issue with this lawn. I get out there, and it's almost like it was brand new sod that had been laid over. Now, it wasn't brand new sod. It had been very, very much established sod. But what I mean by that is there was virtually no roots. I could literally just reach down and grab the grass and just pull it up and peel it back. I mean, it was just crazy. Frustrating thing in that situation was I'd actually used a grub product. I didn't use Durentis. I used another product. But my understanding is Durentis is going to actually give us a wider range of types of grubs that it can control. So I can't say for certain, but I would think with Durentis, hopefully that wouldn't happen. But I think it was a good learning lesson for me, one, to see the damage like I saw it. And again, I've got the image in my mind. Now, fortunately, we've had a good bit of rain this year. That lawn is mostly recovered in that area, but it took on a severe amount of damage from the grubs. Again, a grub is even more challenging sometimes than an armyworm, because at least an armyworm, they're on the lawn, you can see them. The grub's underground, so it's even more difficult to detect. And sometimes by the time you see the damage, it's too late. The other thing with grubs, my understanding is the grubs can come in there and eat the roots of the lawn, and you may not see any immediate damage, but possibly you're going into winter with a weaker root system, and if we have a difficult winter with colder temperatures than normal, you may end up dealing with some winter damage, and so the lawn may not come out looking too great in the spring. For those reasons, I think it's important to build in insecticide to the program, and that's exactly what I did this year. Now for the grub application, I went in May and June because I'm trying to get that down in the earlier part of the life cycle of the grubs. Again, for the armyworm application, I was delaying it later into the year. You can choose to approach that any way you want. In my situation, the grubs were more of a serious threat to the zoysia lawn, so I was applying it for the grubs on the zoysia lawns. The armyworms were more of a serious threat on the Bermuda lawns, so I was using the Durentis for the armyworms on the Bermuda yards. Now chinch bugs is something else I dealt with last year. Durentis will give you suppression of chinch bugs at a higher rate, but you may also look into using some other products to help deal with chinch bugs. They can be difficult to control in the lawn. Good thing is Durentis is part of the InView's EOP program, which is great. But I would like to hear from you in the comments below. 1, have you heard of Durentis? 2, do you build insecticides into your lawn care program, or is that something you charge extra for and do it at a different time? Or if so, what products do you use? I'd love to hear that in the comments. For me, just to reiterate the point that I don't want to just chase after insects after they already arrived in the lawn. I want to be proactive and get ahead of them, and that's what I'm doing with Durentis. Thanks for watching the video. I did put a link in the description below if you want to check out the product, and we'll see you guys in the next video.